Good morning. Thanks for joining us for News Center Maine's Political Brew. Joining us this morning are Ray Richardson of WLOB Radio and Ken Altshuler, longtime co-host of the WGAN Morning News. Gentlemen, good to see you.
Nice to be here, and happy Mother's Day.
Great to see you both.
Happy Mother's Day. Now, much of the political oxygen this week has been consumed by the leaked draft opinion, which signals that the Supreme Court is ready to overturn Roe v. Wade. Suddenly, abortion rights are looking like a major campaign issue this year after showing up as a low priority for voters in recent polling. Governor Mills' campaign was the first out of the gate with a fundraising email tied to all of this. Ken, is this good politics for Janet Mills?
Oh, absolutely. Now, I've been saying for quite some time now that November was going to be a disaster for the Democrats. They're going to definitely lose the House. They had a good chance of maybe holding on to the Senate, but not a great chance of that. Now they've given something to galvanize Democrats. And so Democrats need to use this as much as they can. It is great political fodder for them. I'm not going to say that we're going to salvage the House because of this, but we will salvage some seats. We may salvage some state houses. We may salvage some local elections nationwide on the state level. So good for the Democrats. Every Democrat will be using this as much as possible.
Ray?
Yeah, respectfully, I'm going to disagree with Ken for the simple reason that whether this came out May 3rd or May 2nd, whenever it came out, or whether it comes out July 1, the fact is this is coming out well in advance of the election. It was always going to be there. I think at the end of the day, if analysts are correct and things continue as they are, $7 a gallon gas is going to play more than this ever will.
Will Paul LePage, who is on record as an opponent of abortion, have to spell out what restrictions he would push for if he's elected again and Republicans gain control? Ray?
Yeah, I don't think he has to do that unless he chooses to. He has said that he's pro-life. I think that speaks for itself. I know there's a lot of people that want to make hay and drill down on specifics here or there. LePage hasn't run on this issue. If he decides to run on this issue, he'll have to spell it out. If he doesn't, I think he can control the narrative.
Ken, it seems hard to avoid.
Oh, absolutely. First, let me say, Ray, I'm not saying abortion is the top issue, but the economy is. But this is a big issue nonetheless. And Paul LePage, I don't think, can simply say, I'm pro-life. I'm not going to say any more about it. People are going to want to know what the restrictions are. Remember, 2/3 of Americans believe that a woman should have the right to choose. And I think Paul LePage is going to have to at least say, this is when I think it's justified, this is when I think it's not. And I think he just has to clarify his position. He can't change it, but he can clarify it.
And Ken, I think what you just said gets down to the fact that Republicans are focusing, many of them are, on the leak of the document rather than celebrating one of their policy goals now being within reach. And why is that?
Well, because it's terrible strategy to gloat, number one. And second of all, they don't want to talk about it. They don't want to talk about the decision because 2/3 of Americans believe that a right to choose is a fundamental right of a woman. So they're not going to make any political capital by talking about what a great victory it is. And it also further galvanizes Democrats. So the way to do that is to avoid talking about the decision and talk about the process and divert the attention. This is just a deflection. It's a smart deflection, but they're still going to have to come down to the fact that this decision is coming out. We don't know what form, by the way, and it may change by the time it comes out. But they're still going to have to deal with a complete overturn of Roe v. Wade would have a huge impact on politics and American society.
Yeah, I'm going to respectfully disagree again. I believe Republicans are very proud if this in fact holds up. We don't know if it's true. We know this is a draft document. Look, I said this the day that draft document came out. If true, this is a day I've prayed for decades. I pray for it every day. I believe abortion, like Dred Scott and like Plessy versus Ferguson, the three worst decisions the courts ever rendered, all have one thing in common. They dehumanize things. They dehumanize, deny the humanity of people. Roe denies the humanity of the innocent unborn child. Dred Scott denied the humanity of the slave who went on to free soil. Plessy denied the humanity of Black people, that even though they were free, they couldn't fully live free because they couldn't associate with white people. We have got to stop demonizing groups of people. It's been done throughout the long history of the world. And I've never believed that Roe was about the woman. Roe has always been about the innocent unborn child that was not allowed to live free. And in '73, when this was decided, we didn't have the science and technology. If you're not a faith-based person like I am, and you just thought it was a clump of cells, but today, People say they want to follow the science, but that's just something they say when they use it for politics. The science demonstrates there's a baby there. It's fully formed. It has a beating heart, separate DNA from the mother. Roe has never been about a woman. Roe is about the innocent unborn child that has been denied its humanity. And if this stands, I rejoice.
Ken, you agree with that logic?
I couldn't disagree with Ray more. This is not, and by the way, nobody is pro-abortion. I don't believe abortion is good. I don't believe abortion is birth control. It's pro-choice. It's a woman's right to choose, and it's about that choice. I wouldn't want my wife or daughter to have an abortion, but it's not growing in my body. And the problem is that is the right of the woman to choose. It is about that. And Ray, we have countless examples of people that decisions we make in our society to kill people, the death penalty. We send drones into Syria.
I'm against it.
Barack Obama sent drones into Syria that killed children and women, innocent people. We don't mind taking innocent lives when it's for the national defense, which Syria was not. So we always justify death when it suits our purposes. And by the way, I believe in the death penalty because I think it's inconsistent to be pro-choice and anti-death penalty. And Republicans who are pro-life and pro-death penalty are hypocritical as well.
Well, let's talk about some local politics here. And Senator Susan Collins has been taking a lot of heat because of her votes to confirm Justices Neil Gorsuch and Brett Kavanaugh. Ray, is that fair?
No, I think not. First of all, I wasn't in the room. I don't know what Brett Kavanaugh told Senator Collins. If he said to her flat out, "I'll never vote to overturn Roe," well, then he was being dishonest. But I wasn't there. I don't know what was said. And frankly, I think it's intellectually lazy to look at Kavanaugh through the lens of Roe. What we ought to be doing is looking at Kavanaugh through the lens of the presumption of innocence. Susan Collins gave a magnificent speech about a bedrock principle of this country, that you're innocent until proven guilty. And she stood up for Kavanaugh for that reason. I just think that it's more lazy politics to look at Kavanaugh through the lens of Roe.
But Ken, Brett Kavanaugh was not on trial.
Yeah, I disagree with Ray.
No, I wouldn't agree with that.
I talked to Susan Collins when I was on WGAN, and she voted for Brett Kavanaugh. And my question to her was this. First, the demeanor. Forget the alleged crime. More than that, I said, Senator Collins, he can say whatever he wants to you in your office. But when he's on the bench, he's not going to be impeached. He's not going to be removed from office. Why are you so confident that what he says to you is honest? She goes, I looked him in the eye. He said to me he would not vote to reverse Roe v. Wade, and I believe him. And I said, well, I've got a bridge to sell you. And I've still got a bridge to sell her. I'll sell her Tukey's Bridge very cheap.
Last week, the Maine Republican Party adopted a platform that supports a ban on sex education in Maine high schools from kindergarten through 12th grade. Jason Savage of the Maine GOP issued a statement to us saying that Maine Republicans held an open, transparent debate about serious topics that have parents of all political stripes terrified. Ray, what are we terrified of?
I don't know if either of you gentlemen know this, but I have started an effort to create a Parents' Bill of Rights in the state of Maine for education, because I believe that we are going down a very dark path when it comes to 5, 6, 7, and 8-year-olds, and the idea of sex, sexual orientation, gender identity being talked about openly or even taught in the classroom. We see many school districts around the country where they're adopting that sort of curriculum. I do believe that going to 12th grade is a step too far. I was broadcasting from the convention, and when that was adopted, I said the same thing. I think it's about age appropriateness. 5, 6, 7, and 8-year-olds, it's not appropriate. It's wrong. That's something parents should be talking about. But when you're talking about high school and 12th grade, in January of 1980, I was 18 years old. I graduated in June of that year. Certainly at that age, I'm old enough to go off and do many things as an adult. And I think they could talk about it at that level. But 5, 6, 7, and 8-year-olds, that's my real concern. And this is happening. New Jersey has adopted curriculum as an example, where in September, they'll be talking about in first grade that little boys may have little boy parts, but they might feel like a girl. And I just think this is so inappropriate at that age level, unless it's a conversation between the child and their parents.
So once again, I couldn't disagree more. This is a solution without a problem. To think that teachers have these agendas, the vast majority of teachers are hardworking, low-paid employees who care about the children. They get asked questions about sex all the time from children who aren't getting their answers at home. Do I believe parents should educate their children? Absolutely. Should parents control the curriculum to a certain extent? Go to the school board meetings, put your suggestions in, run for the school board if you want to. But the problem is this: we need to educate our children, and children ask questions. No teacher really has an agenda beyond the curriculum, or at least the vast majority of them. Curriculums are developed, age appropriate. We have experts who do this. You can be involved in the school. You can object when you want to, but this is not a problem. But I will say, it's a great political argument. That's how Terry McAuliffe lost the election in Virginia, because the Republicans are focusing on parent controls of schools, and that's playing very well to the voters, even if it's not a real problem.
Closer to home, Governor Mills has extended her fundraising advantage over Paul LePage. She collected more than $2.7 million compared to LePage's $1.3 million. Ken, what's the message you take from these numbers?
Well, I've got to be honest with you. Paul LePage has done very well not raising as much money as his opponents. So I'm not sure it means a lot in the end. Paul LePage has a strong base. That base is going to come out and vote for him no matter what. I don't think he needs as much money. I disagree with Ray, as he mentioned before. He thinks Paul LePage is going to win. I believe it's Jenna Mills to lose. I think her timing is very fortunate. She's got a lot of federal money. She's sending out $850 checks. I think she's going to be the exception to the rule in November and win. And I think she needs the money to do it. I'm not going to say she can do it without it. I think most of the time, Democrats need more money than Republicans to prevail at the election.
What do you make of that fundraising, Ray?
So I don't think it's a big deal. As we know, back in 2010, Les Otten spent close to $3 million. Paul LePage had $100,000, and he lapped the field in the primary. He's always been at a fundraising disadvantage. But what Paul LePage has that most politicians don't is an extremely strong grassroots effort. It's very different than it used to be. People will literally run through a brick wall for this guy. And I think that's what's going to send him to victory in November. Governor Mills has made a lot of missteps. And I think if the LePage campaign does a good job of articulating Governor LePage's vision for our future, Governor Mills doesn't stand a chance.
Now, there's a primary coming up for Congress in Maine's 2nd District in the Republican Party. Bruce Poliquin has rejected our invitation to appear in a Voice of the Voter forum with his primary challenger, Liz Caruso. His campaign says her low fundraising numbers indicate she's not a viable candidate. Presumably, Poliquin will be skipping other joint appearances as well. Ray, is that smart politics?
Well, from a voter standpoint, you always like to see people debate. But from Bruce Poliquin's standpoint, I don't blame him. You know, when you're on the debate stage, anything can happen. It's a live forum, and a misstep could be a game changer. Right now, Liz Caruso is not polling well, and the internal stuff that I've seen, their fundraising is not there either. I don't blame Bruce for doing this. As someone who loves the political game, sure, I'd love to see him debate. She's a great speaker. She gave a great speech at the convention, as did Bruce. But I don't blame Bruce Poliquin for this.
Ken?
Well, I agree with Ray. Bruce Poliquin is going to win the nomination. He does not have to debate anyone in the primary. And as Ray said, you got an open mic. You don't know what you're going to say. You don't know if you're going to get trapped. I don't think anyone's going to not vote for him because he didn't do this debate. So I'd skip it if I was him. I have no problem with it.
The Maine legislature is due back in Augusta to take care of some final business for one day to take on vetoes. As the session wraps, Ken, does either party have an advantage heading into the fall campaign?
Well, some of the Republicans do, simply because the economy is in the tank. Inflation is high. It's not going to come down in time for the November elections. So from a national trend, the Republicans are certainly going to fare better. I think that the Democrats in Maine are going to offset that somewhat by the fact that we are flush. I'm not going to say it's because of Jenna Mills, although I think Jenna Mills has done a much better job than Ray gives her credit for. But it's the federal money that has come in that has made Maine's economy better than it would have been. So I think that Democrats in Maine will do better than they will nationally. I don't think it's going to be a stellar year for them, but I think they'll hold the majority. And I think at the end of the day, we'll still have a Democratic House and Senate and governorship.
Ray?
You know, I disagree with Ken on this one. I don't think coming out of the legislature, there's a great advantage for one party or the other. One thing Republicans have done for the first time, and I've been here 37 years, that I can remember is they have out-recruited the Democrats. They have more Republicans running for the legislature than the Democrats do. Jeff Timberlake, Senate Republican leader, did a magnificent job of recruiting. I think Kathleen Dillingham did a good job as well. Look, with Governor Mills, if you hand me $14.5 billion, I can give the pretense that my finances are in good shape too. And I just think that is going to come back to haunt her. She didn't do anything really wonderful with this money. She could have made a lot of structural changes. I think Maine people are tired of the same old big government idea that just is going to fail this state. So I think Republicans have an advantage, but here's the bottom line. If they don't work their butts off, they're going to lose. That's just the bottom line.
Let's wrap up with our winners and losers in politics this week. Ken Altshuler, we'll start with you.
So winners are the mothers of the world. We all have mothers. We all love our mothers. They've all given us birth and nurtured us. And without them, we wouldn't be the people we are. So they're the winners of the week. And the loser, in my opinion, is the Supreme Court. Not so much for the decision of Roe v. Wade to overturn it, but the leak. It shows an incredible gap of security. It's something that's never happened before. It's a real black eye for the Supreme Court. So they're the losers of the week.
And Ray Richardson.
Well, if the draft document is true, the winners of the week are the innocent unborn children who will now get to live in this country where they would be denied that right had this draft document not existed. Obviously, Ken's right. I cherish my mom. I cherish Dee Dee's mom. And my daughter-in-laws and my daughter they're great parents. So, mothers are clearly the winners here. I agree with Ken. The loser is Supreme Court because the leak of this draft document is an egregious violation of trust. And, if this is the start and this continues, I'm not really sure how the court recovers because as we talked about with Gorsuch, and this may have been off the air, sometimes they'll draft as many as 100 draft opinions before they get to the final. I don't know how you can have integrity with the court when this becomes a political popular thing out there before you're finally ready to rule. So Ken's right. The court may be in big trouble here.
Ray, Ken, thank you. As always, thank you for being with us. News Center Maine is back after this.